Hey, Grampian Nation, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk to a mythbuster, Mr. Terry Whalin from Southern California. Hang on, we are going for a ride.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Well, good morning, Terry. Welcome to the Grampian, man. It's good to see you.
Great to see you, Jim.
All right. So I called you a mythbuster because, number one, you are a mythbuster. But above and beyond that, full disclosure, my book, Building Men, coming out on Father's Day, you're the acquisitions editor for the actual publisher. So I kind of got to do that full disclosure deal. But yeah, what does an acquisitions editor for Morgan James Publishing out of New York, working from Southern California, do?
Well, Jim, the reality is nobody cares where I live anymore as long as I get the work done. That's one of the things that's been true with Morgan James for a long time. Morgan James is actually the third publisher that I'm working in the acquisitions area.
Oh, wow.
Somebody that's an acquisitions editor, that they're basically a hunter and a gatherer, because I'm often the very first person that sees somebody's submission. And I look at them, I look at the author, see if it's going to be a good fit for the publishing company. And every publisher is different how they work for it. I mean, I've been with Morgan James for about 12 years, but I also worked for a while. I was a part-time fiction acquisitions editor at Howard Publishing when they made a jump to Howard Books. Howard Books is an imprint at Simon Schuster. And so back then I was looking at fiction submissions, novels, and I'm still doing some fiction at Morgan James, but that's exclusively what I did back then. And I called up Johnny Howard, who was the publisher, asked him how many books he wanted to acquire. And he looked at me and he said, Terry, I'm thinking about 6 or 7. I'm like, 6 or 7? I didn't say this to him, but
that's by Tuesday, right?
I probably got 300-400 submissions for those 6 or 7 spots. I mean, I found some really good stories, don't get me wrong, but I said no a ton doing that job. And it was no fun. I mean, it's really no fun to tell people thanks, but no thanks.
We're going in a different direction, which is a different way to say I really don't like anything you did.
No, it's terrible, but I love it when I open up a submission and find a really great one. You know, I mean, children's books, for example, everybody thinks they can write a children's book, but they're really hard, you know. And today I sent a contract to an author who has a beautiful 32-page children's book that has never been published. It hasn't been on Amazon or anything else. Great illustrations, great content. But she was almost like a unicorn, Jim, that I even found anything like that. Now, is she going to publish with Morgan James? I don't know. I sent her a contract this morning, so I sure hope so. Yeah. But that's the whole thing that I'm involved in with these authors all over the world. I sent another contract this morning to a novelist in Australia. So it's not just a United States deal. We're working all over the world.
You know, one of the things that I found is that when you talk to publishers, they're kind of the Dr. No of the industry. And what I found is that they're looking for something special. And when I sent mine in and the first copy came back, it came back with, well, your baby's not ugly, but it certainly needs a haircut. I believe that's a direct quote. And wow, going through the process of writing a book has been incredibly eye-opening for me anyway. And how much work it is, not only before, but during and then after. So what are some of you wrote a book. I mean, so I got to dive into this. You've written 60 some books. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I have. I've written over 60 books for traditional
and
publishers.
A bunch of those have sold over 100,000 copies. So you got a lot of books in print out there. I mean, everywhere.
I've had great
What's the
opportunities
secret?
through the years, and I'm very grateful for all those different things that have been able to happen to me.
Hmm. You say you had a wake up moment as an author,
I did.
like,
I did.
like, bam, the light bulb went off.
Sort of. I'd written a lot of books for traditional publishers. Two of my books actually got six-figure advances from traditional publishers. Now, I have long stories about what happened to those books and why they didn't succeed in the marketplace. But publishers were paying me advances. They were making pretty books. They were getting them into bookstores. All those kinds of great things were happening for me. I was a literary agent back then. I had a little literary agency in North Scottsdale, Arizona. About that time, Mark Victor Hansen, this was in 2007, invited me to come to his mega book marketing university. He's the co-author on Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Right.
And so I went out there to LA and took pitches from authors during that event. But I also decided to sit there with all 400 people. We had these big notebooks and listened to speakers. And like I say, I'd written all these books for traditional publishers. But when you write those kind of books, the publisher once a year, or maybe quarterly, will send you a financial statement about how your book is doing. How's it selling out there? Well, all of mine were in the minus category. They'd never earned back their advance. And
What?
I couldn't figure out what in the heck I was doing. I must have been doing something wrong, So I was trying to figure it out as I sat there and listened to all these speakers. And during that event, it was almost like I woke up. I'd been asleep and I woke up because I understood how little as an author I was doing to help tell people about my own book. Sure, I had a terrywhalin.com website, but I was doing almost nothing else to be telling people about my book. Now, one of the speakers at this event was Jack Canfield, the other co-author on Chicken Soup for the Soul. And Jack has this book that I have on my shelf here called The Success Principles. And that's where he talks about what does it take to be successful in anything in life. Well, the very first success principle says that I will take 100% responsibility for my own success. Now, none of us want to take 100% responsibility. We want somebody else to do it. We want our publisher, our marketing person, somebody, please, other than us, to take that responsibility. But back then, Jim, I decided that I was going to take 100% responsibility for my own success. So I started doing stuff. So I started blogging. They say there's over 600 million blogs that are out there, but I've been blogging since 2004, once a week.
Wow.
Well, I have over 1,700 entries in my blog. I mean, there's a lot of content over there.
Yeah.
I just do it faithfully once a week. I have this thing that searches for my name out there on the internet. And about a year ago, I found this article that said that it listed the top 27 content producers out there. It was like, Seth Godin and Ryan Holiday and Jeff Goins, people like that. It had my name among those 27. And
You're a giant, man.
All I've been doing is blogging, once a week,
That's awesome.
And so, but that shows me that, hey, if I can do it, anybody can do it out there. It's just a matter of being persistent, consistent, persevering, whether even in spite of the no's, all that kind of thing. I mean, those co-authors, Chicken Soup for the Soul, everybody forgets it took them over 160 rejections till they finally found somebody to publish that first Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Yeah.
Now, they finally found a little publisher in Florida that would publish the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. They told
Put
their
them on the map.
They told their publisher they were going to sell.
Publisher on the map.
Yeah, they told their publisher they were going to sell 1 million books in the first year. Well, their publisher laughed at them. They never sold 1 million copies of anything. I thought that was ridiculous. It took them 1.5 years.
Yeah.
But they practiced what they called the rule of 5. And I tell authors to do this all the time. They practiced, they got up every day and they did 5 things to be telling people about their book. They did a podcast, a radio show, a live event, a newspaper article, a guest blog post, 5 things. And they did that over and over and over. Ultimately, it caught on.
Yeah.
People started to buy it,
Awesome.
and they sold books. And that's
Yeah.
the kind of thing that all of us as authors have to do in order to be able to get people to know about our book. I mean, we've pretty much proven out there in the marketplace that somebody has to hear about your book 10, 12, a dozen times before they actually say, oh, that book that Jim wrote, that sounds like a book I should buy.
Maybe I'll check that out. I had a manager once, and he took me aside and he said, "You have to take responsibility for what you want." And I was like, "Okay." And I didn't really know what that looks like. And he said, "JT," that was my name back then, is what he called me. There were several Jims in the office, but he says, "JT," he says, "if it's going to be, it's up to me. I want you to say that." And I'm like, "Okay." And it sounded pretty weird at the time, and I was a young kid, but I did, and here's what I found: if it's going to be, it's up to me. That's what you're telling us.
Oh, it's really true, Jim. I mean, even this acquisitions work that I do at Morgan James, I mean, I still get turned down a lot from different authors. There's these people that I'm really invested in their book, and I think this will be a really great book. We're going to sell a ton of these, and then they come back to me and say, Terry, I think I'm going to self-publish, or I think I'm going to do X, whatever. They're not going to come with Morgan James, and so I am personally disappointed when that happens. But I have to realize, again, just like you and I are talking about here, I can't control anybody else out there. I can only control me and my response.
Yeah,
And so I have to keep looking for the next one. That's
yeah.
what I have to do.
Well, I can tell folks from firsthand experience, if you want to go into a new business, don't make it publishing. It's already pretty busy. And I promise you, you don't know what you're doing. And these people have been doing it for a really long time. And there's a reason that they have offices in London and New York and Tokyo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, like Morgan James, who is a professional. And the approach to not just content, but cover, back cover, placement, distribution, everything. If I had to do this by myself, I would have a fool for a client.
Well, and I've met authors who've self-published, and they've spent, $10, $15, $20,000 to self-publish their book.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to spend that amount of money, by the time you hire an editor, design a cover, do the interior, throw a little
Yep.
money at marketing. I mean, you could spend a lot of money doing all that stuff, and you're doing it all
Yeah.
yourself. I mean,
And the publisher will do it for you. That's the thing. It's like, hey, you've got this free resource that's an expert in their field. You might as well glom onto it. So let's talk about your book a minute. The one you have out now. I called you a myth buster, and as an editor, you look for different things. But then, as an author, you had this epiphany, and then you wrote the 10 myths, or the 10
publishing
10
myths.
publishing myths.
Yep.
Hey, there it is. The 10 publishing myths.
Yeah,
I
wrote that book.
You got to have a reason. Why did you write the book?
Yeah, I wrote the book because I talk to authors all day long. And often when I talk to these authors, they'll have completely unrealistic expectations, no matter how they're going to publish their book. Even if they're going to self-publish, the very first myth, for example, is that I will make a lot of money. That's what authors assume. They just think they're going to make a lot of dough, no matter how they publish their book. I would tell you, Jim, the premise of the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, if they build it, they will come. It's not true with books because you could publish your book, you can get it out there in the market, but if you're not telling anybody about it, nobody's going to come. Nobody's going to buy it. I mean, it's hard. I mean, there are over 11,000 new books that are published every day in this country. Wow. I mean, that includes the self-published books. There's just a lot of competition.
Wow, that's a huge number, man.
It is. And so every author has to be doing their part to do that. And so I wrote this 10 Publishing Myths book because I wanted to give authors practical ideas of what they could be doing to take action and actually sell books. Because as I've been in the publishing process for years here, I know that so much of the process is just outside of my control. There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I can't get a bookstore to buy your book, for example, and carry your book in the store. But I can't control, I can't control the algorithm over on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or any of those things out there. So if you build your site and you build your work over on those platforms, that's fine. But in the business, we call that a rented platform because I don't control those things. As a matter of fact, I could knowingly or unknowingly violate their terms and get kicked off them tomorrow. So you want to be smart as an author and build on something that you can control and you can keep. So you want to build your own blog, your own website, your own newsletter list. Those are all things that you can do something about. And that's the kind of practical information that I include in 10 Publishing Myths.
Yeah, and that's and so many times if people have a book in them and they want to get it out, it's really about the message. And I know for me personally, I want to impact people's lives. And if I do a great job and I impact people's lives, but nobody knows about it, what good is it?
No, that's exactly right. And in the book business, the numbers that people don't understand is if you sell 5,000 copies of your book in the lifetime of the book, that's a good number for us in publishing.
Yeah.
There's some other ways that you can be talking about your book out there that'll really have some bigger numbers associated with it and help you. So like that's part of the reason that I've written for more than 50 magazines over the years, because with a magazine article, it's very easy to reach 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people with your stuff.
Wow.
Magazine articles are shorter than books. They're, you can learn how to write for a particular reader. You can learn how to have a really great headline, a great beginning, middle, and end, a single point to your magazine article. And at the end of their magazine article, you can say, author of such and such book. So you can be telling people about your book in that process. And what people don't realize, Jim, is if you write on a similar kind of topic, if you write 15 or 20 of those, they can be chapters of your book.
Sure.
It's all a matter of looking at what you want to get done and how you can get it done. And that's all part of the process.
In my speaking, often I find myself on stages that are really open and receptive to talking about, I'm a business speaker, so it's pretty easy to talk about business, and what I did was building men. And so, but one of the things that I found is people like, well, where's your book? Well, it's been a 3-year process. And I've been a speaker for 3 years, so so I was doing the book before the speaking, but the process itself. Tell us about why it takes so
long. It generally takes so long because people don't understand the business aspects of the book publishing business, and that's some of the information that I built into 10 Publishing Myths. But I also did that. In my book called Book Proposals That Sell, 21 Secrets to Speed Your Success. I wrote that book at the very first publisher that I worked for. I was frustrated, Jim, because I wasn't getting the type of submissions from authors that I needed. So out of my own frustration, I wrote this Book Proposals That Sell book. Thankfully, the book has over 150 5-star reviews out there. It's helped people get a literary agent, get a publishing deal, get an advance. All kinds of great things have happened from that book. But publishing has changed a lot through the years. And so a few years ago, I wrote a revised edition of this book. and it's out there. And you can get the full book from me if you go to bookproposals.ws for website, bookproposals.ws. You'll see
We'll put that in the show notes for
you'll
you.
see the cover, a big button that says free book when they do that. You get the full book from me over there. Now, why would I give away my ebook version, the full book of
That's a great quote. Why would you give away your book?
I give it away because at Morgan James, we've learned that if somebody gets that ebook from me for free and they start to read that ebook, there's a high probability they're going to turn and buy the print copy of the book. So
Oh, wow.
giving away that free ebook drives print sales, and you as the author, we give you all those email addresses. So it's a way for you to grow your email list and drive print sales. When ebooks came out, Jim, we all thought ebooks were going to take over the world and print was going to disappear. Well, that's not really true because statistically, worldwide, they've pretty much proven that it's 80% print and 20% ebook. So ebooks are not going to take over the world here at this point. Print is still going to be around. Yeah. And that's a great way for you as the author to get your stuff out there.
Awesome. So I'm working with Morgan James and this fantastic dude up out of Vancouver. I mean, this guy is just a rock star. Full disclosure, I went to record my Audible version of my book, and they're like, that gravelly old man voice is probably not going to be the greatest thing that people want to listen to for a long time. They might endure it for a podcast, but not for hours. And so, but I had no idea of the intricacies of putting something together for an audiobook.
Yeah,
why is that?
I haven't worked a lot in audio myself. I actually had a reader for my Billy Graham book that I did. I did a biography of Billy Graham. And so we actually had 28 people that tried out to read my Billy Graham book. I found a really great reader. I do listen to audiobooks, Jim. And so I know that some audiobooks have something different inside them. In addition to the person reading the book. And so I wondered what I could do with my audiobook to make it different. Well, I did a little Google search and I found the Gaithers singing Just As I Am. Cliff Barrows and George Beverly Shea, where they were both sitting there singing the song. So I clipped out a few seconds of that hymn, but then I needed permission, right, to be able to use it.
Sure.
Well, back when I was at Howard Books, Gloria Gaither was one of our authors. And so I swapped cards with Gloria Gaither. I'd never contacted her since that event, but I reached out to her and told her about my little Billy Graham project. I sent her the clip and I asked for royalty-free permission to use these clips. Well, within 24 hours, they granted that to us. And so I sent that off to the guy that was doing the recording on my Billy Graham book. So every chapter of my Billy Graham book starts out with that little hymn. Now,
nice.
Now I had to listen to my audiobook 4 times to get all the words straightened out and everything done on that. The final time I was listening to my audiobook, I was just sitting there at my desk weeping because I was thinking about those listeners that could listen to my little story about Billy Graham, a biography of America's greatest evangelist, who could make a decision for Jesus by listening to his life story. And I thought, that's what we do, these books. We don't really know what happens to them out there, but we can do our part to make the very best book that we can and get it out there to the world.
Yeah, that is so awesome. So a lot of the folks who are going to be listening to this podcast are going to be, they're going to be, say, non-writers or novice writers. But I think that one of the things that drew me into putting together a book is the first one was actually a letter to my grandchildren. And it turned into a message, a collection of stories that are to my grandchildren, but everybody was like, you should think about like putting this in a book form. If I'd have had a little bit more advice in advance, it probably would have gone easier for me. So, Terry, as an acquisitions editor, what counsel would you give to a novice writer?
Yeah, the first thing I'd tell them is that stories are really what drives it. I mean, all of us. I mean, the how-to information is great, but at the end of the day, we're going to remember your little story and your little experience. And those personal experience stories can be the fodder for these magazine articles, like I was talking about earlier.
Mm,
Almost every magazine out there, I mean, from Guideposts to AARP to the most prolific and then the most simple magazine, they almost all take personal experience stories. So I
yes.
always advise people to start there. I mean, all of us have strange, different life experiences. So
Hmm.
write those stories down, a beginning, middle, and end, a single point to them. And those things can be the backbone of your book, but they can also be something that can help you get the message out about your book to the broader world.
So, if you're a novice writer and you want to write a magazine article, just to put your toe in the water, how do you do that?
Well, it's pretty simple because I've been a magazine editor, and magazine editors tell you what they want from the writers. They have this thing called writers guidelines, and you
Uh-huh.
can you can Google it. It's probably on their website. You can sometimes submit the article online using those guidelines, but they basically tell you what they want. They want 500 words, or they want 1,200 words, or whatever it is. Uh,
Hmm.
so if you write what they want, you're more likely to have them interested in publishing that. It's that
Yeah.
it's that simple. And then there's writers market guides that you can find at your local library. And I mean, basically the editor is telling you what they want. So if you give them what they want, they're going to be interested.
Right on. So, Terry, what is your biggest joy that you've taken from being an author?
I guess the biggest joy that I have from that experience, Jim, is that these books change people's lives.
Mhm.
And I know that firsthand because years ago, when I was in college, as a sophomore in college, I was at Indiana University, one of the top 10 journalism schools in the country. Um, I'd been out at a social fraternity. I'd been drinking the night before. I couldn't get my fingers on the right keys. This was in the pre-computer days. So I was making a lot of mistakes. My copy was going to look terrible. So every mistake that I made, I said to myself, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And this little blonde haired girl that was sitting next to me, she said, "Oh, Terry, don't say that, because one of these days when you really need Jesus, you'll call out for him and he won't be there." And I thought,
Mm.
what's this? I'm a Christian. I go to church when I'm at home. I read the Bible in church when I'm at home. I knew nothing about Christianity, Jim, looking back. She encouraged me to go to this little bookstore a couple blocks off the Indiana campus. They had pretty cards and posters. Maybe I'd find a book that interested me. So I wandered down there. A couple of days later. I bought this book called Jesus the Revolutionary. I thought, how in the world could Jesus be a revolutionary? I read that book, showed me a different side of Jesus than I'd ever seen before. But about that time, some people invited me to a Jesus People gathering in downtown Bloomington. They were sitting on little scraps
Hmm.
of carpets with little candles lit. And those people had something that I didn't have. And
Yeah.
so I got a Bible, and I've been going the Jesus trail ever since. And basically, I changed the direction of my life because I thought I was going to be a newspaper reporter working at the Indianapolis Star or the Chicago Tribune or the Los Angeles Times, one of those places. Instead, I joined this group called Wycliffe Bible Translators, and I spent
Ah.
17 years of my life with them. I actually have a New Testament that's on my shelf from my years in Guatemala working among the Southwest Cachiquel people. But I wandered back to my writing. But you ask what gives joy. And part of the reason I'm in this book business all the time is that I personally know that books change people's lives. And I know that firsthand because I read this little book as a sophomore in college that changed my life. And so that's what we're doing day in and day out as we get these books out there into the world and into the market. People read them and it changes what they're doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I bet that with the number of books that you've sold, you've changed a lot of lives. I'm going to give you one more chance to do that before we close out. Terry, if you had your 18-year-old self that was sitting across the table from you and you had to give him a piece of advice or counsel or wisdom, what would you lay on him today?
I'm not really sure, Jim, how to answer that. I guess I would tell them, I guess, in the journey of life, you have a lot of opportunities out there that come to us day in and day out. The question is, what action are you going to take and seize to have those opportunities? I mean, now as an editor, I go to conferences, I listen to people's ideas. I say, that's really a great idea. Write that up and send that to me. But what I've learned is that maybe 10, 15% of the people that I say that to actually follow through and send me their stuff. So if you're one of those people that take action and can actually follow through and give people what they want, that's going to put you on a different trajectory. I believe, Jim, that we live in one of the greatest opportunity times in human history. I mean, just think of it, our little phone, we can communicate with people all over the world using that little device that's in our pocket. I mean, we have great opportunity out there, but it doesn't just come to you. You have to physically take action for something to happen.
There you go. All right. Good counsel, man. Good counsel. Hey, the book, 10 Publishing Myths by Terry Whalin. Folks, if you've got a book in you or you think you might want to say something, or if you want to change somebody's life, get this book, figure out, and then take action. Terry, thanks for being with us today. We appreciate you, and we're so grateful that you took some time to spend with Grampian Nation.
Jim, thank you so much. And I want people too to go to publishingoffer.com. They can get the book for only $10, along with over $200 worth of bonuses. That includes the shipping. So go to publishingoffer.com is the best place to get the book.
Awesome. We will put that in the show notes. Grampian Nation, thanks again for tuning in. Hey, subscribe and like. This is Jim, and I am out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.